This is Sam Bushman
And Dan Morrison.
with Candid Gaming's coverage of Comic-Con 2010. The past couple days at Comic-Con, we've had the opportunity to play and preview a lot of different games coming out for the PS3, and also the PSP. The most notable of which for the PSP is God of War Ghost of Sparta. It's a new game, sequel to Chains of Olympus, which came out a year or two back. Dan, what do you have to say on it?
Well, they went ahead and went from the ground up to push the PSP even further on trying to get this thing to be the most graphically intense PSP game on the market. And from what they showed, it is impressive. It really looks almost like identical to like a PS2 game. Like they're putting it across a giant projector, and if they didn't tell me it was a PSP, I would have been convinced it's like a PS2 game or better.
Yeah, it definitely looked really good. I did notice that some of the levels were a little small, which I suppose might be attributed to the small amount of memory on the unit. But the gameplay seemed to be advanced once again from previous God of War titles. They've had new weapons, new combos, new set pieces. The developers had said they tried to expand the game, bring in some larger bosses to try to make this more epic experience. But overall, I can't wait to see it. Next up, I know you had the opportunity to sit in on a talk with Warren Spector on Epic Mickey. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, Warren Spector went ahead and talked about Epic Mickey. It is going to be the first kind of like Disney title he's done. It's very interesting. It's going to go ahead and take Mickey back into the world of Wasteland, which is kind of like this magical place that is kind of imagined through Walt Disney's, where all of the things that have died, like or have been forgotten, like old characters, old rides through that are being put into this interesting world, and that this whole kind of world is its own new sense of entity. And now you, as Mickey, have to go in there, explore it, and try to save this wasteland area.
What exactly is threatening this wasteland area?
This creature, I can't remember its name offhand, but it has somehow come onto this world, and now you have to save everyone from it. And the way that you do this is that you really push for this interesting gameplay concept of that you have a paintbrush, and you can either create stuff or destroy stuff with paint thinner. So you got paint and thinner to go ahead and change and dynamically move around in this world.
What sort of stuff do you create and destroy?
You could paint characters, go ahead and change their things. You could go ahead and make blocks. You could go and destroy blocks. You could erase characters at times and stuff. Now this is finite, so you can't just keep on doing this. And it also plays into the platforming. Warren actually, surprisingly, he said he really wanted to do a platform. This is the first opportunity he's got to do this. So this will be very interesting how he did it. And the paint goes into that, so it'll assist you in getting some of these harder platforms. Like if you're a good platformer, you could probably do the jumps. If you're not, help you make another block just to get you through.
Okay, so ultimately this paintbrush concept creates and destroys platforms, but also changes NPCs?
Yes, you could erase NPCs and it will change the way the game is. One thing that, if you've never played a Warren Spector game, he really enjoys the journey. And you could affect the journey in a lot of different ways. You could delete characters, you could go ahead and interact with characters in different ways, and there's no good or bad. It's happening. So if you do something that kind of like destroys like half the things, some people will respect you for it, some people won't. You won't actually know your ramifications till later. And that's something that's really strong and powerful about what Warren Spector really brings to his games.
Now, what sort of art style are we looking for to see in Epic Mickey?
It's a very unique art style. It's interesting because if you've ever seen Mickey, it's completely different. You have to see screenshots of this to kind of believe it. It is a very kind of darkish noir, but not only that, they've also, like in certain areas, they've went ahead and retrofitted it down to the old art style of kind of like the old animations. So they really went back to the drawing board on how to go ahead and make real-time animations that emulate cell frames, and it came really close on the stuff it did.
All right, well, I'll look forward to see some gameplay footage.
Yeah.
Also, you had the opportunity to sit in on a panel on Red Faction Armageddon, and also we got to see some gameplay. What do you have to say about what you saw in the session?
Well, I have to say, out of everything there, that was probably the biggest waste of my time. It really was kind of disappointing to me because I played the first like 3 Red Factions, and I never saw this direction of aliens. And everywhere you see, this is like the biggest thing here. If I had to say one single like game that I've seen that was advertised here, it's Armageddon. There's huge wall posters of it over here. There's a huge mech sitting in the middle of like the floor, and then there's a huge projection. Like you could see it across the whole floor, this big thing, And then you go into here, it's like aliens, and it's like, what is this? This doesn't seem like Red Faction. Red Faction originally is a game about people on Mars revolting against an oppressive power. And now they're aliens. And I asked directly why, and I wasn't really given a good straight answer. Now, going back to what was at the board, they've pushed that instead of this being only just a game, now they're going to go ahead and do it into an intermediate production. That now it's not only going to be a game, it's going to be a movie, it's going to be a TV series, it's going to be a novel, it's going to be a comic book. It's going to be this large, amazing IP, and they really tried to hype it up, but they really didn't explain why they just chose this IP for this, how this IP is unique to how this IP is unique from other games that have attempted this, and really why. It just kind of felt that it was a big wash of lots of words that were really saying nothing.
Now, when we had an opportunity to talk to one of the writers, it sounded a lot like there were details about the story that he had to hold back for PR purposes. So, I mean, given the benefit of the doubt to the developers, they might very well reveal some details of the plot that would make the plot lean a little closer to previous Red Faction games. All the same, though, even if that is the case, it seems like the PR department really dropped the ball because the image that they're presenting for the game now really does seem like a non-Red Faction game. And that, combined with the gameplay itself, which is very reminiscent of current action third-person shooters such as Gears of War, maybe even some SOCOM titles,
Lost Planet 2,
or even Lost Planet 2, it seems to have lost its identity a little bit.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I think, if you go in and take Red Faction as an IP from its original franchise, from the original few, you kind of see that this is a human conflict and it's a human civil war. There's a lot of humanity with it, and regardless, you can make a huge game out of this. It really doesn't matter. There's always going to be human conflicts. You can just take any area of the world and basically use it as a basis for how you're going to set this up. And there's tons of plots you can do with just a human-human interaction. Some guys are good, some guys are bad. Good guys are going to be bad guys. There's lots of gray with it. Humanity is very fun with that. When you introduce aliens, it completely destroys that humanity, and it polarizes to be a black and white concept. The aliens are going to be bad. Humans are the good people. You want to go ahead and help like the humans. So you kind of lose that part with it.
Right. Well, ultimately, I know I'm certainly not going to pre-order it yet, but I'll be curious to see if when they reveal more of the plot, more of the gameplay, if this does turn out to look more like a Red Faction game.
Yeah.
One really surprising title that I got to see was the Scott Pilgrim movie-based game. They actually ended up making a side-scrolling beat-em-up out of it using pixel art, where players get to play as famous roles from what I assume to be the graphic novel because of the way the art style is set up. But they introduce a combo system when grabbing enemies and just pounding the snot out of them. Special abilities that get unlocked during gameplay, similar to something like Castle Crashers, where you build experience. And really colorful boss battles, really fun and interesting set pieces during the levels. Very comical. I honestly had a lot of fun with it. What were your thoughts on it?
Yes, it really goes in is a lot closer to the graphic novel than the actual movie, which is going to be coming out soon. And I'm a lot more excited for this game than I am for watching the movie because just who's in it, or just how it is. It's a very fun retro final fight kind of beat 'em up game, and it really shows a good polish to it.
Yeah, and certainly everyone that was there playing the demo looked like they were smiling, having a good time, bantering with each other. This is going to be a really interesting party title, and I believe it's coming to the Xbox Live Arcade and the PSN.
Yes.
Also, another interesting title that you had the opportunity to play was Fist of the North Star, which I believe is based off of an old manga.
Yes, and anime. It is a very interesting game. If you ever played God Hand, it really feels reminiscent to that game. It's just a very classic kind of beat 'em up that you just go around and you're just mauling people. And that's pretty much what this game really does well. And it has a very nice tight control scheme, very simplistic, but allows you to do a lot of different combos and stuff. It's basically like you mash two buttons to go and do most of your stuff, then you have a superpower area, then you have a way of selecting your superpowers with your directional pad. Very reminiscent more of the God Hand style, and I really enjoyed that. The part that was a little weak on it, I believe, was the vehicles. The vehicles felt a little bit raw and maybe not polished up. I was kind of running into walls, and it ruined the flow, I think, to the game. But overall, the combat controls while I was punching people and all that, very solid.
Fantastic. I mean, it looked like there's a lot of action going on in it. I like the fact that you could ride horses, and you were given vehicles other than just a car or a motorcycle. I don't know much about the anime myself, but it'd be an interesting title to try regardless.